Hey everyone, this is Paul Gale from paulgalenetwork.com, and thank you for joining me today for video game sales. It is January 20th, 2022, and in today's video we're going to check out the Famitsu sales from Japan that show you the hardware and software sold from January 10th through January 16th. This could be interpreted as week 3, or as you could tell, January 16th is only 2 days after the 14th, so most of it is the first 2 weeks of the year, with only 2 of them being part of week 3. But regardless, here we go, starting with software. This is the top 10 for you. The best-selling game of the week was Mario Party Superstars for Nintendo Switch, selling 22,108 copies. At 2 is Pokemon Diamond and Pearl with 19,129. At 3rd place is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with 18,505. In 4th is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, selling 17,684 copies. In 5th is Minecraft, moving 12,986 copies. In 6th is Animal Crossing New Horizons for Nintendo Switch, selling 11,948. In 7th is Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain, moving 10,895 units. In 8th is Ring Fit Adventure, selling 10,064. In 9th is Momotaro Dentetsu, selling 9,864 copies. And in 10th is Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, moving 6,845 copies. This top 10 is dominated by Nintendo Switch software. However, it is a top 10 of all games, so it just goes to show you that Nintendo is really dominating Japan. We're seeing some evergreens, as usual, by the likes of Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, and Animal Crossing. Strong third-party support in the likes of Minecraft and Momotaro, so that's pretty nice to see something other than software developed directly by Nintendo occupying the top 10. But props to Nintendo on really creating a solid platform and compelling games, a reason to own the system and a reason to keep buying the games. That's why usually on each Nintendo system, the best-selling games end up being Nintendo's own software. Not that third parties don't sell, but comparatively, Nintendo software is always above the rest in terms of sales on Nintendo platforms. But everyone's eating pretty well in Japan. We don't have the top 30 yet, but if we were to look in the top 30, you would see some other third-party titles. Probably Monster Hunter Rise is still there. When the DLC comes out this summer, I'm confident that the game will shoot back up towards the top, and perhaps, given a sale or something like that, Shin Megami Tensei 5 will come back into the top, maybe not top 10, but could it crack in the top 20, 30 still? Probably, hopefully at least. Really good game on that end. Will we see PlayStation software in the top 10 sooner or later? Hopefully. I gotta imagine that Final Fantasy 16 is going to do it. I would hope that the next Dragon Quest would do it. But really, you're seeing a greater and greater divide between Nintendo and the competition, being PlayStation and Xbox, that I think for the next several years, you're going to see something like this far more often than kind of like we got back in the day, where there's this mix of like 6 and 4, 7 and 3. Interest in the PlayStation brand is declining. But as we look into hardware in just a moment, you're going to see that, hey, Sony is actually shipping more PlayStation 5s now to Japan. So there is hope that the PS5 as a console will do all right and maybe not hit that 10 million mark, which Sony hasn't done in a while. Maybe not even hit 9, but something like a 7.5 million selling platform isn't bad. It's just not as good as former PlayStation hardware sold. But let's hop into the hardware side of things right now. The best-selling console of the week was the Nintendo Switch, selling 94,523 units. In second place was the PlayStation 5 with 14,453. In third was Xbox Series with 2,267. 3DS came in at 4th at 489, and PlayStation 4 in 5th at 17. There is a significant drop in Nintendo Switch between last week and this week. There usually is a drop in this time of the year anyways, as people are done with their holiday shopping, as Japan's first week holidays are done. People give money, they give gift cards, people spend them in the first week or so of the year, and then we have the drop. However, what's going to be interesting is come the end of January, Nintendo Switch in 2022 has something that former years didn't have, and that's a giant potential seller. Well, we know it's going to sell well, but a potential console mover in Pokemon Legends Arceus. The game's probably going to debut somewhere around 2 million in Japan. With digital included, I would say it's an easy 2 million. Physical alone, it might even reach that. But even if it doesn't, if it's like in that 1.65 territory, with digital, it's going to be a 2 million seller. But usually Pokemon games are sold to people that already have systems. Yeah, you'll see a slight increase in console sales when a Pokemon game comes out, but the further into a generation, it's not like, so many more people are going to buy a Nintendo Switch or a console of Nintendo's now to play a Pokemon game. They probably already had that system, you know? However, Pokemon Legends Arceus is a little bit different of a story. It's not a mainline traditional Pokemon RPG. It's different. It's a semi-open world approach to Pokemon. It's set in the past. It's got a different gameplay loop. You know, for better or worse, it's not multiplayer driven. It's a solo campaign. It looks like it has elements from Monster Hunter, which does very well in Japan. Of course, it's got plenty of elements from Pokemon games, which are popular. So it may potentially bring in a new audience, a new type of lapsed Pokemon fan or a non-Pokemon fan at his or her heart, but someone who likes action-adventure games and likes this type of environment that we're seeing in the game, that I think those proponents are enough to make people that don't already have a Nintendo Switch buy a console than just another generation Pokemon title would. So I think January, even though it's less than last week, it's, less than it was last year. When we get to the Pokemon Legends Arceus week, we're going to see increased sales. And it's going to be interesting to see going forward just how well Nintendo Switch does in 2022 compared to years past, both worldwide and in Japan. In Japan in particular, I think it will definitely top 2019. Will it top 2020 or 2021? In software, probably yes to both. In hardware, I would say, to be safe, probably not. Probably just beating 2019's, But I think it's going to be closer to 2020 and 2021 than 19, for what it's worth. So that's still the signs of a very strong system that is not reaching its end with a stark decline. It's maybe past that halfway point, but I think the decline is going to be gradual. But we'll see. Pretty exciting stuff, though. The software just looks great. Triangle Strategy. Could that be a console mover? Maybe, but probably comparable to Octopath Traveler. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Could that be a console mover? Perhaps. You could have people that didn't buy a Nintendo Switch for Super Mario Odyssey, nor did they buy it for a couple of the past 2D Kirby entries, but they like Kirby enough, they think this is a cool enough of an evolution in the Kirby franchise that's a hardware mover. And then you look at stuff like Bayonetta 3, Splatoon 3. You could make the case that, well, people already have a Nintendo Switch for Splatoon 2 and for Bayonetta 2. Are there really that many people out there that don't have a Nintendo Switch that are going to buy one for Splatoon 3 and Bayonetta 3? Quite possibly so. As a few years move on, and as a different crowd of gamers come in, and a new generation of gamers now becomes of the age that they could be playing these titles, word of mouth will spread. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a greater spike in sales for Bayonetta 3 on the hardware side and Splatoon 3 on the hardware side than some of the other games in the year. And wrapping up with Breath of the Wild 2, similar. Most people that have a Nintendo Switch already exist because they wanted to buy Breath of the Wild, you know? You're not seeing tons of new Nintendo Switch owners now to pick up Breath of the Wild coming in. The game is still selling well, but not a whole bunch of new people are buying the system today for Breath of the Wild. But they still exist. And as positive word of mouth spreads on Breath of the Wild 2, same things. 5.5 years will have passed. New generation of gamer, new level of talk, new level of hype. All this stuff around it, you're going to see a spike in sales. So could Nintendo Switch hardware top 2021s in 2022? Maybe. But I'm not going to call it yet. I'm going to say 19 for sure. PlayStation 5, on the other hand, we spent a lot of time on Nintendo. We want to give a fair game to everybody. It's just sometimes, you know, in the case of Japanese sales, Nintendo dominates the conversation. But I still want to give, you know, equal time to everyone, or at least try to give equal time. PlayStation 5, you got to give props to Sony. They were really struggling, and it was almost laughably bad with how low their shipments were in those prior to last 4 weeks or so of 2021 leading into 2022, how bad they were for the several weeks ahead of that time. You know, October and November, early December was pretty low. Then we got that 4-week run of being hot, and now actually it's continuing into a 5th week with 14,000 units. That's double what they shipped last year. Nice, or what they sold at least. It's more than what they sold last week by almost 4,000. That's solid. So, pretty good start. Its lifetime to date is ahead of where it was before. I wouldn't call 10,000 fantastic, but I would say that should be the minimum. I would say that 50,000 units being shipped every week. Oh, that would be strong. That would be solid and respectable to the Japanese market. Ones and stuff like that, that's laughably bad. Tens, at least somewhat respectable, because in time, 10,000 a week becomes 40,000 a month, and then now you're looking at 500,000 plus per year. Not horrible, you know? Plus in the holidays, you should have some spikes, right? But we'll see how Sony does. They're at 1.3 million almost lifetime, and like I said, I'm thinking that 7.5 lifetime is going to be what we should expect out of PlayStation 5 this time around. The Xbox Series did very well, almost tenfold of last week's 263, 2,267 units. That's what Xbox should be doing. Ideally, I would say be pumping out 5,000 a week. Xbox Series is already ahead of Xbox One, and it has a ways to go to beat the original Xbox, but it looks like it'll top 360. Now, if it could beat Xbox OG, that would be pretty cool. Like, if it's, if they could make it a 3 million seller, that would be a landslide success story. We're not going to go that high yet, but I think this gap is going to start to narrow a bit between PlayStation and Xbox, both worldwide and in Japan. 3DS, 489, you know, these are those last several hundred, or seemingly several thousand units that are just available, that exist in some stores on some shelves that people are still finding and buying while they can before they go into an aftermarket. PlayStation 4, similar. It's not going to be counted much longer, I don't think. Maybe Famitsu will still track them for a bit longer, but, you know, 17, 15, like, this is less than 2 dozen. So is it worth even mentioning? I mean, it's still fun. I'll still track it. I'll still talk about it as I see them unfold, but it's really a minuscule amount at this point that, you know, even when you multiply 20 a week times 52 weeks, and you're only getting a couple thousand per year. It's low. But hey, props to PlayStation 4, because if you look at it from this perspective, it was successful enough of a system to be able to last this long and still have some interest by people into the next system's life. So that's kind of testament to the quality of the console. I know in Japan it wasn't received all that well. 9 million is still a fair amount though. It's not bad. But worldwide, really, PlayStation 4 was probably Sony's best console. Didn't sell as much as PS2, but when you factor in how many people spent how much money on PlayStation 4 software going into VR, accessory growth, and subscription services, PS4 was their best system. And if you look at the breakdown, if we spend a little bit more time here, PlayStation 5 definitely outpaced the digital version, 12,996 to digital's 1457. Xbox Series S sold 1848 to the Series X's 419. Nintendo Switch OLED dominated on the Nintendo side of things with 48,824, followed by the Nintendo Switch Base at 29,131, and the Nintendo Switch Lite at third with 16,568. You know, we talk about like phasing out models, and if Nintendo will eventually phase out the Nintendo Switch Base, only have an OLED, maybe phase out the Lite after a Lite OLED has come onto the scene, and then now you have those two. The new base Lite is an OLED Lite. The new base Nintendo Switch is the OLED Switch. Both of their prices are also lower though, because some people might not want the base of each to be the only one at this premium level of cost, but you have to, have it lower and then be able to lower it, and on Nintendo's side still make a profit margin. But I wonder if Nintendo does release a Nintendo Switch Lite, would they consider adding the ability for it to be docked? So hear me out. A portable Nintendo Switch Lite that does not come with a dock, that does cost more than $200, leaving the old Lite at $200 while the new Lite OLED comes out at like $250, or potentially dropping the Lite to like $170 while the OLED model comes out for like a $220 kind of cost. Giving some incentive for people that didn't buy a Lite to say, hey, now for $30 less, I'll buy it. Or for people to buy an OLED saying, for $230, that's only $30 more than it was before, $60 more than the base Lite, but the ability to buy a dock on the side and connect it to TV. All that's missing from the Lite to being capable of being played on TV is a little component in it that allows you to connect. You could charge a Lite a similar way as you could charge a Nintendo Switch, but you can't have it play on a TV. So you'd have to come up with a different dock. But if this different dock, for instance, had a different face in which it allowed for all Nintendo Switch SKUs to be docked in it, right? Flush on the back, nothing occupying the face, just a little bit of a lip that comes out so that you could rest an OLED in it. You could rest a base Nintendo Switch in it. You could rest a regular Lite, but it wouldn't go to the TV, or rest a Lite OLED model that could go to the TV. And this dock would be one of those 4K docks that could be, upgraded, have some type of, patch upgrade, future-proof in it a little bit. That would be a smart decision, because I think more people would buy it, the Lite OLED for that matter, if it also could go on TV. Part of the attractive nature of it is, it's a little bit smaller, but you would also have a little bit bigger of a screen if they, ate up some of that bezel space. But in addition to being a little bit more portable, a little bit better form factor for comfort perhaps than Joy-Con, even though I like the Joy-Con and I have, good sized hands and it doesn't bother me, although I prefer a Pro Controller. But regardless, what holds some people back is, the really beautiful thing of Nintendo Switch is that 2-in-1 experience, TV and handheld. So what if you could save money on a regular Switch, get a Lite, be happy with the way it is, but have that opportunity to buy a dock. And maybe this dock, would be a $100 new dock. And then if you factor it in, well, $100 for the dock, and you're charging $230 for a Nintendo Switch Lite OLED, that's $330, but it's still $20 less than a base OLED, right? So you have some wiggle room. Nintendo's still able to have some profit. You don't have to mandatorily force people to spend $320, $330 to just experience a Lite, but giving the consumer the opportunity to choose for themselves, and having a dock that works with everything to charge, and for 3 of those 4 systems also display on TV and be future-proof with a Nintendo Switch 4K or a Nintendo Switch 2, that would be awesome. Let me know what you think of that. We kind of went from some sales talk to some speculation talk on what Nintendo could do with a Nintendo Switch Lite OLED. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Thank you to Chris1964 and the InstallBaseForum.com forums for putting this information together. Chris did a good job taking the Famitsu charts, throwing it up, and I appreciate that. It's nice to read, clear, legible, good stuff. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. This is PGN signing out. Hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you next time for more video game sales, news, talking conversations, reaction videos. I did a Star Wars Lego Skywalker Saga video today. That was a fun one to react to and talk about. So yeah, good stuff. Take it easy, everybody.